Hello and welcome to episode 2 of the War Room Esports Daily Debrief. Excuse me. So we have a special guest today, Locodoco, ex-LCS coach. How's it going, Loco?
Hey Jarge, it's going pretty well. Taking a nice little break, babysitting for my friend's dog, and just chilling and waiting for off season to start.
Good stuff. With me are my two regular co-hosts. We have Shakarez, log and content manager. Say hi.
What's up? Not looking like a zombie today, I think. Not as much as
Yes.
at least.
I think we all got a bit more sleep today, so that should be good. And finally, of course, we have Nasser, the head analyst for Misfits and formerly of NRG.
Hello.
Marvelous. So let's get started. So we're going to do things much like we did yesterday. So anyone who watched yesterday will understand how this works. But I'll give a bit of an explanation for anyone who is watching us for the first time. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to be talking about each of the games, and we're going to give our thoughts, share some clips, give you guys a bit of analysis about how we think the games went. Mm-hmm. And obviously, at the end of the broadcast, we'll be taking questions. So if you guys want to ask any questions, put them in Twitch chat or tweet at any of us. And
Except me.
Yeah, just preferably not Shaka because he's dealing with the production side of things. Yeah. And obviously, we're still a pretty new operation. So, if you guys want to ask any questions, just shoot them at us either in Twitch chat or on Twitter, and we'll get to them if we think they're interesting.
Yeah.
So, let's get started. So the first game, SKT versus C9.
Yep.
Nasser, I think you have some things you want to say, so I'm gonna let you take this one in the beginning.
All right. Whenever you can, just bring up the pick and ban for the game so the viewers can see. But the first thing we want to criticize is C9's pick ban. I think they were either underprepared or just misread how they needed to draft in this meta and versus SKT. So the first thing we should look at is the Nidalee ban. I don't know if the C9 staff know this, but if they go to esports wikis and they search up Bengi's, champion stats, they will find that if they search F and type in Nidalee, they will find 0 searches for Nidalee, which means that he has never Bengi has never played Nidalee in his entire professional career, which is 4 years now. 4 years he has never played Nidalee. It's widespread knowledge that he does not like Nidalee. He does not really feel comfortable on the champion. And I think someone mentioned that when SKT, Faker, and Bengi saw the Nidalee ban, they kind of chuckled. So yeah, that was the first mistake that they made. The second one they made was they banned Vlad instead of Syndra. And what we know, especially after yesterday, is that Syndra is really high priority and you should first pick it whenever possible. And the reasons for that being is, one, Aurelion Sol was banned. And Aurelion Sol is one of these other big champions in the current meta that can have lane control and lane dominance. So without a Sol in the picture, and when you ban Vlad, which is kind of a counter, team fight counter to Syndra, what's left up is Syndra and Cassiopeia. And what we now know, or we knew before, but what we really knew after yesterday, we found out after yesterday, is that Cassiopeia is really, really weak into Syndra. And if you are facing a good Syndra, you're going to get wrecked.
Okay, so Loco, what's your take on this game?
Oh, this game?
Mm-hmm.
I do agree, regarding the draft stuff. Syndra seems really fucking OP from talking to you guys earlier and watching how it played out in the game. My doubts about Syndra were, if you play Braum or Kench into Syndra, mid-game, it's really easy to negate her pick potential, but because you just block the spears, and then you can also block the ult with Braum. And also, if one of your carries gets done, you just eat him up with Kench. I think this game with C9 being okay, I always felt they played this in NA. We're better than you in terms of mechanics. That's how they feel like. And hey, Myrish. And then
Oh my god.
and then what is it? They just play really, really cocky, and then they draft really cocky, and then they rely on their better mid and late game to just like close out the game, but they're just really greedy early in terms of what they're doing and how they're doing things. So, I mean, it bit them in the ass because like this team is apparently like as good, you know, like SKT's no slouch. They're just not gonna be like, okay, you can't fucking match this early game if you pick scaling laners and then your jungle Lee Sin doesn't gank once and then he's just chilling the whole time. I really did not like the Nidalee ban into the Lee Sin pick. I thought it was so odd. I did not understand like why at all.
I wanted to mention that I think that Jensen was pretty greedy with summoners as well. He runs Flash Exhaust, and you're playing against Syndra. Now, against Syndra...
Syndra and Elise.
Yeah, Syndra and Elise. So Syndra and Elise means there's more or less a guaranteed stun that's going to land, and if one stun lands, it's pretty much guaranteed they'll layer the stun with another stun. So you kind of need Cleanse, and if you're not going to take Cleanse, you should be taking Barrier, at least, in my opinion.
Maybe he doesn't have respect.
Yeah, I don't think he respected Faker at all. I mean, I can show the clips right here. The first blood is one of those things where I'm going to play the clip right now, where he sees Bengi. Bengi is taking down a ward, and Jensen saw him, right? And he's still moving around, and you see Faker sets up the stun. He gets stunned, Bengi flashes. He exhausts Bengi, but it's not going to make a difference because Faker is the one with the burst, you know? Bengi's just there to layer the stun. So
we call that a panic exhaust.
Yeah. So here, like pretty much, you can escape this scenario, I think, with a cleanse, and maybe even with a barrier, you know, but not with exhaust.
Yeah.
You can always flash it too.
Oh yeah, you can always flash it too. And
and the other thing, and another.
He went into the game thinking, what is it? I'm gonna be able to beat Faker. I'm gonna fucking clap this kid. That's how he played. Like, straight up, like trading that aggressively. Like, the summoners he took, like those aren't summoners you take if you feel like, okay, I'm just gonna farm this out. Like, this is a lane where Syndra has the advantage. It's fucking Syndra Elise, and it's better for me to survive this and go into mid game. That's not how he's playing this, even though that is the truth and that's how he should be playing. Like, the summoners he took and how he played in lane, he was like, I'm gonna clap this kid.
Yeah, and the other thing that's worth mentioning is like, there's this. We've seen a lot of buff takeaways where teams invade for buffs, right? And C9 actually does this well, and they invade and they get blue for Jensen, right? But then look at Jensen. I'm rolling the clip right now. Look at how he paths. He could have pathed safely. He knows Syndra's already in lane, and Syndra has the range advantage, right? So he just, first off, he gets comboed. He tries to walk back in. He gets the Thunderlord's proc, and then he decides he's going around. But what he actually ends up doing is Faker sees him doing this, and he just walks up, gets some balls out.
Are you referencing a clip?
Yeah.
Because you're not showing the clip.
I am.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, it's frozen for me. Never mind.
Okay, it's frozen for you, but it was that's Skype share. That's not very good, but I was showing it. And then like he panic flashes after Syndra ult comes out, so it was just dreadful, you know. The way he passed, he was so greedy, and he thinks Faker won't punish that. And if there's any mid at the tournament that will punish mispositioning in lane, I think it's Faker.
Yeah. So I think one of the things we also have to talk about is not just the way mid plays, but also the way they play as a team. One of the things that we identified about C9 as a potential weakness is a lack of TP play. What we saw is that from about 8 minutes, Duke used his TP like slightly before like 8 minutes, but for that entire window, there was no way that C9 were looking to set up for a TP play at all. So basically, Duke just got like a free TP back to lane with no punish from C9 at all. And also like, we don't have a clip for this, but if anybody wants to watch something that's like super fucking hilarious, just watch from in the game. Watch from 16:30 till about 18 minutes. Wolf just like goes to mid, gets a kill on Jensen. He doesn't really like do much. Like Faker would have got the kill 1-on-1 anyway. It's the one where Faker flashes forward and ults into the stun. But so Wolf is there and he follows up, and then he roams to bot through the that's the one. So he roams to bot. Yeah, he roams to bot straight away. He goes through all the wards, and then he goes on to Sneaky, who's pushing up really far. And then Sneaky ends up having to blow his spell shield on Bang, like eating forward. So then they get TP'd on, and then Wolf roams back to mid and gets another kill on Jensen. So in a minute and a half, he sets up 4 kills. by just like roaming down up and down river. So I mean, one's got to question like the communication on C9 to have a support just like roam into lane and create kills. Just like, in my opinion, like if I was coaching a team and I saw that, I'd be really mad. I'd be like, look, you can't do this. It's not acceptable. So I don't know. It's
Yeah.
So when he walks
a lot of questions about C9.
just to add to your point, when he walks back up to mid, by that time Bengi clear the pink ward in river, so he's actually not spotted.
Yeah, one of
But-
the things that people should do is look at the way Wolf passes. He's actually really intelligent. So what he does is he actually walks into the jungle, and then he avoids most of the river, which means that even though they're pretty sure they've cleared out some of the wards, he gets there's two advantages to doing it this way. Number one, he gets information on where Lee Sin is or isn't, because you can judge that based on how many camps are up, and also he potentially avoids any wards in the river. So it's just like, it's really good pathing from Wolf, but I also think like a really good exploitation of the poor communication from C9. We didn't see any TP plays being set up. Everything was reactive, and Wolf just ran all over the map and just killed everyone in the lanes.
Yeah.
You know, it's
And just in defense of Meteos, like once your mid lane loses that much control on mid, there's not so much you can do in your side lanes, I think, because at that point, if he helps his side lanes instead of covering for mid in case a dive happens, so if he goes to the side lanes, then Jensen's gonna get dove mid, and Syndra and Elise are just gonna get the tower for free if they see Lee Sin in top or bottom side. And I still don't think that Lee Sin could have pulled anything off in the side lanes. I think both Duke and the SKT bottom lane had good control of their lanes so that they wouldn't be easily ganked.
Really? I felt like bot lane was getting pretty. They weren't getting smashed, but they were getting pushed in. And if anything, like I would have set up something bot lane.
Yeah.
Do you think they could have dove? Yeah, I think maybe they could have dove, but then I think either SKT would have responded with TP and Elise, or they would have dove mid. But I guess it would have been a good, like at this point, maybe you should just trade.
I think
there's a certain point. Sorry, there's a certain point at which you just go like, we're behind, we have to make a play, and like there's counterplay, but sometimes you just got to go for it because you're just gonna get choked out. Like with a team like SKT, you know they're gonna one of the weaknesses they had was the early game. So when they're showing up in the early game, and you know their mid and late game is really strong, especially with a player like Bengi who, you know, he's had like issues in early game, but in terms of his like mid game positioning, he's really good. So you have to just respect that SKT is going to close it out if you give them the lead, and you just go, all right, just go in, you know, just make a play and hope that it works, because otherwise SKT is going to close it out. Right, let's move on to Flash Wars and IM. So let's get I think we have a clip for Flash Wars and IM. I think NASA.
We have multiple clips here. So if we remember from episode 1, for those who watched it, when we talked about Flash Wolves, we talked about how they have this heavy jungle invade style. They play really well around Karsa, particularly Maple and Sword Art. Play lane or play around Karsa in a way that facilitates him to invade the enemy jungle. And we see it like in their first game at Worlds here versus IME. If you have the clip up, what they do, what Flash Wolves does is they push in bottom lane, and Rek'Sai just moves into Aime's jungle and just takes the blue buff away from Zac. And Aime can't respond because their bot lane is pushed in, and if they leave lane, they're going to lose crucial XP and gold in the early levels. Same thing for mid lane. Varus can't really roam early versus a Vlad, so Zac is just forced to abandon his blue buff and continue his path. And then what we see from Zac is that he's kind of like salty, and he wants to get a blue buff, so he goes into Karsa's jungle later on, right after this invade, and he walks over, but the Vlad sees him, and so they know that Zac is gonna go to invade the blue. But what Aime doesn't do is that his laners don't cover for him. Even though Amazing Jay has his lane pushed, he doesn't go and help the Zac. Instead, the Gnar, who's pushed in, leaves lane and goes in with the Vlad to collapse on him, which I think is a mistake, because I think if Aime wanted to, they could have collapsed onto the Vlad and the Gnar and created a 2v3 situation, since Karsa was around bot side. So I think IMA messed this up, and Flash Wolves took advantage of IMA's miscommunication and ended up getting a really big win in the early game, both for the jungle and for their solo lanes.
So, I mean, one of the things we have to point out here is that this is actually becoming a systematic problem for teams at Worlds, because we saw this in the RNG TSM game as well. You know, Svenskeren got inside MLXG's jungle, and then MLXG's response is to try and take his blue, and he ends up paying for it because his lanes aren't covering for him. So, like, yeah, the response a lot of the time for being invaded is to try and trade and take something else. But one of the things that people have to remember is that you can't invade without lane pressure, and you can't invade without your lanes being ready to cover for you.
Yeah.
So, I think it's actually going to be interesting to see how many teams fall for that, because one of the as we've kept saying, you know, the big theme for this World is how well are teams invading into people's jungles and how well are they controlling enemy buffs. And you know, I think Flash Wolves was a really good team in terms of, I mean, they made some mistakes later on, but I think in terms of their jungle control, it was really good. And I think TSM has also shown really good jungle control. SKT has been showing really good jungle control. So although SKT is more about kind of snowballing mid, but
Yeah.
I do think there's definitely this theme of jungle invade is going to be really important. I think it's going to be interesting to see how teams react and find ways to kind of mitigate that pressure.
I mean, it's something that some teams are learning completely new. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like a team like C9, they actually don't deal with jungle pressure that well, and they usually have Meteos just go farm the other side, and a lot of their strength comes from mid game and late game team fighting. And for TSM, like, their communication's always really been on point. They play really objective heavy. I feel like CLG does the same things. I'm not as familiar with other reasons, but I know Flash Wolves always had really good coordination with their mid and jungle. So basically, like, teams got to Worlds in different ways. Like, some teams got here with good coordination, some teams got here with really good individual player mechanics, some teams just abused weaker regions. So I think it's really showing up. It's not about adapting, it's about we came in with these kind of skills, we already had this learned. And then for some teams, it's like, no, we didn't come here like the standard way, the right way. We got here by being really, really good at one thing, and it's really showing in their game that, like, what they're bad at.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I also think it's worth mentioning that some teams, we've already seen some teams kind of change their playstyle in a way that it ended up hindering them. We saw G2 playing carry top towards the carry top, which is not their style at all. And we also saw EDG put Mouse on Irelia, even though he's 7-0 on Irelia. He was 7-0 on Irelia competitively. EDG doesn't really play for top lane. So, like, we've seen two of these teams that decide to change their playstyle after playing a whole season of playing differently, and it turns out pretty bad. So, yeah.
Yeah. So viewers and like everyone watching this game at this point, and in the next 10 minutes, where Flash Wolves accumulate like a 4K or 5K gold lead, are like, okay, so Flash Wolves is gonna win, right?
Yeah.
Well, wrong. No. So why don't they? Why couldn't they like end this game and snowball off such a huge lead, especially from the early game? Well, we have a clip for you.
Yeah. So it's the one where they have pushing side lanes, but they rotate. To
So
right?
at this point, Flash Wolves has they're 4K up, and they have 2 side lane turrets that they got, but they couldn't get the mid turret down until 40 minutes. Which is absurd because, like I said, Flash Wolves had full map control. So the problem is here, so how are you going to get this mid tower? What you should do is push up your side lanes and then rotate mid for either a dive, if you can get it off, but if you can't get a dive off, then at least get some mid turret damage. And so the reason why you should push your side lanes is because that's going to break up the IM team apart, so that they have to collect so that they can collect their the waves in the side lanes, and then that's going to leave 1 or 2 people in the mid lane versus like 4 or 5 from Flash Wolves, and then you just either try to dive or get off some tower damage, and repeatedly for like about 10 minutes Flash Wolves keep pushing their side lanes and then recalling instead.
Yeah.
They never, if I remember correctly, they never rotate mid as a 5 after pushing these side lanes. And that's why basically IMA were allowed to stall and just scale up with the Varus and the Jhin and the Zac and the Alistar.
I think it's... Yeah, go on, sorry. I thought you had ended.
Yeah, that's everything I had to say about this portion of the game is that they just weren't able to accomplish a simple like macro objective that you're supposed to do after you get the 2 outer towers down,
Yeah,
especially with such a huge gold lead.
Yeah, I just want to mention that I think they were kind of scared of diving. You know, you mentioned diving, and I think it's the correct play. But when you're playing against Zach, Alistar, especially Alistar, like Alistar is so good at punishing dives, I feel like, because he can buy so much time under turrets. You know, he can ult himself,
Sure.
and then he CCs a lot. But I still agree with what you say, where you push side lanes, and then even if you rotate mid just for chip damage on the tower, it's worth it.
Yeah.
Because the
It
moment,
doesn't necessarily have to be the dive.
yeah, the moment you take down that first tower, you opened up the map so much. And the mid tower opens up the map much more than the side lane turrets. So I do agree with you here.
Okay, so Loco, do you have any last points about this game?
No, I definitely agree regarding like the mid turret thing. Like getting first mid turret is so fucking huge, and you push up side lanes, you go mid. If they stay in side lanes, you take mid turret. If they come mid with you, then they're losing side lane farm, rinse and repeat. That's like basic, like League of Legends. Like
Yeah.
I would say like
This is fundamental League of Legends.
Push
So I
and
think-
move, push and move.
Yeah, one of the things that I think it's really important to highlight is that so a lot of teams, there's a lot of things that gets thrown around. You know, there's these buzzwords. You know, like win condition is this big thing that gets thrown around, and I think that actually, like, it's really important for teams to separate the difference between a win condition and an end condition, because one of the things that Flash Wolves was doing really well was identifying that one of the things they identified really well was how to accumulate that gold lead. Is how to get that lead, because there's 2 steps to winning a game. There's, you get the lead and then you end. And one of the things that Flash Wolves do really well is they get the lead. So, they're getting inside the enemy jungle, they're denying jungle camps. They were accumulating about, they were average about 1k gold lead every like 2 or 3 minutes, which is slow, but like it's still a gold lead. And as long as you're accumulating that, it's fine. But one of the things they failed to recognize was how they end the game. Because getting a gold lead doesn't win you the game. They say the only real win condition is killing the Nexus. So one of the things that Flash Wolves really have to identify, is when your plan isn't working to end the game, you have to start looking at other things, because they could see that they were getting a gold lead, but they weren't getting the mid tower. And at some point, at about 25 minutes, they couldn't get the Baron either. And it took them till 40 minutes to even start doing anything around the Baron, and then they took a fight and they lost. So one of the things that I think Flash Wars and I think teams in general need to realize is that, identifying your win conditions is important, identifying how you get that gold lead, but you also have to have that conversation in the game that your plan isn't working. You need to go, okay, what's our end condition? How do we end this game? How do we physically get to that Nexus?
Yeah.
And I think that's a conversation that Flash Wars didn't have, and I think it's something that they should look to adapt.
It's in almost all end conditions. Like just take Baron.
It's take Baron or get a fight.
Can you show the clip?
Yeah, I can show the clip.
Yeah.
So
at 36 minutes, that's when Flash Wolves decide, okay, it's going to be hard to take the mid tower now since they have so much wave clear with the Varus at this point. So let's try to start something around Baron. But I feel like they wanted to bait, but they weren't really positioning themselves in a way that's easy for them to bait a fight. They were kind of grouping to the left side, and then they got the Baron super low. And there's one thing you guys have to notice is that the Zac has a level advantage, and you do not, for whatever reason, you do not want to risk a potential 50-50 smite. And it's not even really a 50-50 smite, since the Zac should be able to outsmite you. So you never want to get the Baron that low if the enemy jungler has a level advantage. And
I don't even know why they're starting Baron. They should just be pushing up mid and getting vision control. Like, even before doing this Baron, they need to get the fucking mid turret down.
Yeah, exactly. And they still don't have the mid tower, and then they don't have vision in the enemy jungle, so they're not able to get a good TP, a TP ward down where they can just collapse. And I don't know, it was just really bad positioning, and then the Gnar was 1v3ing the backline, and they were onto the left side. Didn't make sense. They still got a kill somehow.
Yeah.
But then, so they retreat, but then they decide, I think they start to go back on Baron, right?
Yeah, it's like...
And this is just...
It's like this big extended fight. The fight is turns out to extend for so long that by the end of it, when they finished, and this is at 37 minutes, right? When they finish, Road is already getting out of base. So like,
Yeah.
I think they stopped it.
And
They stopped it because they were like, oh shit, Alistair is actually coming back. So we extended this too long.
Yeah, and the Zach was still up, and they still wanted to like get the they wanted to do the Baron. I don't think they really wanted to bait. They didn't because they weren't in the position to, and they didn't have like the TP ward down right. I don't know. It was just a mess. And then you guys, the viewers, can keep watching the game, and they do this mistake with the Baron, and then they end up losing because they're not baiting it right, and then they do the same thing at Elder Dragon. It's just always absurd to watch.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like a recurring problem with Flash Wolves where they're just immaculate in the early game with the invade style that they have, similar to how TSM plays. But then in the mid game they kind of lose everything.
Yeah,
I think it's worth mentioning. Sorry, Jarge, just before I forget, but like one constant we've noticed is teams that have successfully done Baron. Like the one thing is not only they establish vision, but they get a pick before they go for Baron. Like they don't do Baron with a 5v5 play unless it's going to be a bait, and they have enough vision to bait in the enemy team and then turn. I think like getting the pick, especially if you can get the pick on the jungler, is so much more important.
Yeah. Okay. So I actually want to move on to TSM
sure.
Samsung Galaxy game. We don't really have too much to say about this. Does anyone want to open up?
Oh, the TSM game.
Yeah.
I think we can talk about the draft if we have the draft up.
Yeah, let's.
I saw Samsung drafted like terribly. Like it was like what the fuck?
What was wrong with it?
Well, first like they just straight up gave up Syndra, and
after
like,
they saw the Vlad ban too.
Yeah, and like their draft overall seemed like we're gonna win later on, but we're gonna give TSM everything they want in terms of early game tools. Like that's how TSM loves to play. They love having really strong early game with CC because that scales really well too, and it's really punishing to play. It can punish really hard, and it also has good comeback potential because you have a lot of CC, and they got exactly what they wanted. And I don't understand this whole like what is it? I guess it's not even like giving Spencer and Lee, but they're giving him really favorable condition to play Lee into, in my opinion.
Yeah, okay. Like you're basically forfeiting early pressure and allowing Lee Sin to do whatever he wants on the map.
Like so, first pick Syndra. They first picked Syndra. Like first, which they shouldn't have been Cassio. They should have been Syndra. Yeah. But their response to Syndra,
the Cassio, like, the Varus is so good versus the Cassio. Yeah. It's so much better into the Cassio than the Syndra. So it's absurd that they banned the Cassio instead of Syndra when they could have just, if TSM ends up playing Cassio, just play Varus into it.
I think it's.
I don't get the response either because they drafted Rumble Israel into Syndra. Like, why the fuck are you like? I don't get why they're letting the top lane get counterpicked so easily like that.
Okay, so for me, what's super absurd is they don't see the Vlad ban and think this is a dead giveaway that TSM wants Syndra, because it is. Like they're banning the only laner that we've seen so far at Worlds that can do well versus Syndra, which is Vlad. So it's a dead giveaway for starters, and then you mentioned very well the top counter, and I think the Ezreal pick is because of Ruler's weird champion pool. I don't think he has the biggest champion pool, and he tends to go for these. He wants to play like with these. How do I say this? Like outside of his main picks, he's not very comfortable. So they want to guarantee that he gets the Ezreal. I think because the Ashe was the other pick I remember from him, but the Ashe is kind of nerfed, so he just defaults to the Ezreal. That's why the Ezreal pick is there, I think.
Yeah, and I think what Samsung wanted to do was they saw that what most people have been criticizing TSM for was their mid to late game closing isn't as efficient as some of these other elite teams like Rox or SKT. It's not as snowbally. So I guess what they thought was it's okay if we lose a bit early, but we'll just outscale them with the Varus and the Ezreal and the Alistar. But I think versus TSM, if you're drafting 3 losing lanes and you draft an early jungler like Elise isn't going to be able to do much, and you're just putting TSM in a position where they can get a huge gold lead, and you're just relying on them to not play well. And I don't think you should ever go into a match or into draft or draft in a way that you're just expecting or hoping the other team is going to make a mistake. I think that's a big mistake that some coaches or some teams do.
Yeah, I think we saw evidence. We saw like some of this in anyone who watched the NA Gauntlet run actually. C9 when C9 was playing against Immortals, even though Meteos was on Gragas and Rainover was on, I think it was in Diddley, which is, like the quintessential jungle invade pick, super aggressive in the early game. Yeah. Meteos actually got the invade because they had better lanes. And it's so important that you have the good lanes. So it's I think people should be aware of that. And I actually want to defend TSM's close a little bit here, because I think that people went a bit hard on TSM, and they're like, oh, they didn't close out 25 minutes. And actually, I think the way they closed was okay. I think they made like one or two mistakes. One mistake I did notice was so they did 2 big pushes inside the enemy topside jungle to try and bait Baron. And so the first time I think was fine. It's at this point they initially went in about 22 minutes, and I think at 22 minutes it's really early, despite your gold lead. Even if you do have a 10k lead, I think it's still a bit early to start looking at like, okay, we're just going to take Baron and end. Like, yes, you can do it, but there's that risk. And even if you lose Baron, like, you'll probably still be ahead, but there's still that huge risk. So there's no, in my opinion, no obligation to really take Baron at that point. And I think looking to bait the Baron is fine. And a lot of people are saying, oh, they missed the wards in river, and I think, yeah, that's important, but a lot of people weren't realizing what actually they were doing. So one of the tactics you can use when you're trying to bait the Baron and you actually do have quite a substantial gold lead is, as long as you stay inside the enemy jungle and you're taking the jungle camps, you're still accumulating that gold lead, because you're still forcing waves into the tower. They lose creeps to tower. They also don't get the jungle. They don't get the jungle income. So you're getting 3 waves of income plus jungle. They're only getting 3 waves, and not all of that is actually you're not getting all of it because you're losing some of it to tower. But what TSM were doing, they were staying inside the enemy jungle and waiting out the ward, because they knew that the ward wasn't a blue trinket ward, which you can see. So they knew it was a stealth ward, and those have a time limit, which means that 100% that if you wait inside the enemy jungle for 2.5 minutes, that ward will expire. So there's actually, in my opinion, nothing wrong with just waiting out the ward and letting it expire, and then they have to face check. But what eventually TSM did is they went and took the Infernal Drake, which I think is fine. I don't think that's a poor macro decision at all. One of the things that I think they made them, one of the big places I think they made the mistake was when they went after the Infernal Dragon, they reset. At that point Samsung knows that they take the dragon, because you get the announcement.
Yeah.
Yeah, the pop-up, the announcement. So that Samsung's going to be putting wards back around back in the river. So at that point, you really do need 2 sweepers. And they came out with 1 sweeper on Bifrost. And I think at that point, you really do need 2 sweepers, because at that point that they're using cheese wards, because they have wards in the river. That because they weren't face checking you in the first time. So I think it's really important that TSM came out with 2 sweepers. Also, Bjerg came out with 2 Doran's rings, and this is like 25 minutes. And I think at that point you really need a ping, because you're looking at close. You've got 10k gold leads. You don't need the Doran's ring.
Sell your ring.
Like you don't need the fucking Doran's ring. Select, buy a ping.
And that was something that people were complaining about yesterday.
Yeah, I think that's a legitimate criticism, but I think this like, people make out like TSM's got like the super bad macro, and in my opinion, what I saw is just not true. Like, I think they made one mistake, like not getting a sweeper and Bjergsen keeping his Doran's ring, but I think in terms of the way they managed the waves to invade, they did very safe. It was very methodical. They were taking the jungle camps. They were giving Samsung nothing. Samsung had no ins to win that game ever. At no point there was no option for them to win the game.
Way that you can criticize them for being slow is when you face that elite team, when you face Rocks, when you face SKT, and we saw it versus RNG. If you slow down the pace to a level where you're not really pressuring these teams that hard and not looking to be a bit more proactive, like you're allowing those teams to find a way to come back. You're giving them the farm. You're just giving them the space that they want and the time they need to be able to get back into the game. I think that's the only criticism, but it doesn't make them bad. They're still great. They're still great. They're just maybe not like elite, not yet.
So
I don't know if I'd say that. I mean, but based on what I saw from Rocks, like I think like there's questions about Peanut, so I'm not even 100% sure that like
We're
you know,
talking
these
about macro.
alleged-
We're talking about
yeah.
we're talking about macro. We're not talking about individual skill. We're talking about macro here.
Yeah. But okay, so
I think the last clip that we wanted to show that really I think tilted this game was Ambition's invade.
Oh god, that was so fucking game ending.
Yeah,
Like-
I think maybe if Ambition didn't do that, Samsung would have been able to scale a bit more safely, even though they would have been like 1 or 2K gold down, or even 3K gold down. But the big thing is that if you see, when does Ambition invade? He invades when Crown is about to or is backing, and he misses his cocoon, and he still goes in for the skirmish. Like, dude, what are you doing here? It's
no,
just
and the bigger part is that Svenskeren
Dodges the cocoon?
No. He dodges the cocoon because he saw him earlier. Because it's
Okay.
So basically, how this I was looking at the minimap just now, and basically how this works is Ambition pinged blue way before Crown backed. So I don't think either Crown needs to say, dude, no, I need to back, cancel this invade, or Crown is just not giving him info and Ambition doesn't notice. But when Ambition invades the jungle, Svenskeren actually pings him because he had just queued to blue buff, right? So then Ambition sits on the tribush on top, as we're seeing right now, and Svenskeren is taking out the Gromp ward because Ambition placed a Gromp ward before looping around, right? So Svenskeren is baiting this. Like he's playing this super smart because he knows Ambition is there. So he's just waiting for the cocoon to come out and he dodges it. So this is like really.
that's the dodge is blind look though. The dodge is blind look.
Yeah,
Like
it's blind.
there's no way he can predict which way the cocoon will go.
It's blind, but he knows it's coming, and it's different.
Oh
when
yeah,
you know it's
sure.
coming.
Like
so
he's in
it's
the right place,
yeah,
but
it's
like
really smart
that skirmish was pretty close, and that you know, an outplay here, an outplay there could very easily have turned in Samsung's favor. Like, I don't think it was the right decision, but like that was.
You should not 100%. When you are a jungler, you do not invade if your laner is backing.
No,
Especially if your laner is backing.
100%.
Straight boost.
Let alone that he did not have mid pressure.
Mm-hmm.
Let alone that he did not have that.
Yep.
It was just
Oh my god. Poor
Don't do
Cube,
this.
like he's getting fucking squished in. What if it just
Yeah.
to follow up on the mistake?
Yeah,
Yep.
Kuve gets fucked pretty hard by this one as well.
It's just like yesterday just gave me a huge headache because teams were just playing really badly. I feel like these things are something you should already like. These are basic things, and seeing like different players in different teams just fail to live up to like the international expectation that we expect teams to play at was really sad for the second day yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Like, you have anything else you want to say about this game?
I actually think Bio is a pretty big question mark right now due to how he's been playing, and
Actually,
also
agree.
how
I think I agree.
how
Sorry, carry
Double's been playing. How Double's been playing also. So like it's hard for him to have like someone to lean on, and I feel like if Samsung, like they should have taken. I would have taken a completely different approach with their draft. I would have tried to abuse bot side much as possible while having a stable top, because I felt like Cube. It's not so much in Cubase's like, I guess, like repertoire, but going that way, having ambition on something like Elise or Lee Sin, and then giving mid a skill matchup that doesn't include Syndra in there, would have been like a way better draft for Samsung. Like, if they went with a different game plan, I think the game could have been a lot more even. And like just looking from this game, it looks like TSM's such a better team. It looks like Ambition's a garbage jungler, and it looks like Crown is like an ineffective mid. But with a different draft and with a different like approach to the game, I feel like Samsung could have really brought their game. And it's so frustrating to watch because we know like we're having these expectations because we know these players are good. It's not like we're expecting this out of like garbage tier players. All the players here are really good, and they're not using the right tools. So like they're not playing to what they're good at. So it's like, what the fuck are you guys trying to accomplish?
Yeah. Okay, so is there anything else anyone wants to say about this game before we move on to our RNG and Splice?
I think we should touch on not people bashing LS, but people bashing Crown because of the expectation some analysts put on him to be like, the best mechanical mid in the world. And people were making fun of Crown or making fun of analysts for dying 1v1 to Bjergsen or losing like all mid pressure. But first off, if you rewatch the mid lane stream, so there was a mid lane stream for this matchup. If you rewatch the VOD, if you watch how Crown was playing that lane early, he was trading really well with Bjergsen, and he was keeping up in CS in a matchup that's pretty hard for Varus early on. It was only when Ambition just fucked up the game for Samsung and Bjergsen got a kill that Crown kind of lost. Like, it's hard to play that lane really well or keep it even at that point. Maybe you could say that he should have respected Bjergsen's ultimate more and like his level 6 all in. But what do you do as a Varus in that situation? Like, if you leave the tower, you lose all the XP and you lose tower damage. So you're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place.
Yeah, I remember one bad trade from Crown. That was it. Like pre-6, I remember one bad trade where he took a bit too much damage, but he still managed to trade back decently. And as you said, I think it's essentially, the thing we have to focus on here is that it's a pretty bad matchup for Crown, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think one of the things we have to remember, and I want to touch a little bit about what Loco just said about how like you can have like really good players, but at the end of the day, if you don't give them the tools they need to succeed, there's not a lot they can do.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like you can have like the world's best painter, but if you give him like a fucking like if he's all he's got to paint is like the fucking brick and a piece of paper, and he's got to scrape the brick on the piece of paper, and that it's like he's gonna look like a shit like a shit artist. You know, it's like when you're mid laner, like when the superstar mid lane, it doesn't matter how good your mechanics are, but when you're a counter picks and your jungler's trolling, like what can you do?
Yeah.
You know, like against a team that understands how to close out a game, and just for the record, yes, they do understand how to close the game. I think that you know, like what can you do? You know.
Yeah, like just to clarify, so Cinder got an assist, not a kill.
I don't think it matters though. Like it's still
it's still extra experience. It's still extra gold.
And really the only thing you can blame Ruler for was picking Varus, and that maybe it was his decision or maybe it was a team decision. We don't know, so it's really hard to blame Ruler for that. And even then, if Samsung didn't invade. Ambition didn't stupidly invade and die and give up 2 kills, then the Varus could have worked out, maybe. But I don't think this is a game where we can truly judge the Ruler versus Bjergsen matchup. Outside of like the first 3 levels where we think it was pretty even in that hard matchup.
Yeah. You know, one thing I realized is there's so much ego picks going on right now. Like fucking the Syndra versus Cassiopeia with taking exhaust, like that was such an ego pick, and I think this whole setup from Samsung was like a ego draft and like an ego pick from Crown. Also, it's like okay, so you're Bjergsen, huh? Like I'm gonna fuck you up. I'm fucking Crown from KR, and then it's like Jensen like actively calling out Faker before the game. Like I'm sure that was done in a good manner, and it's not like Jensen like shitting on Faker, but both like there has to have been some ego behind these picks, because I straight up will refuse to like take the picks for what it is. Like I do not believe the coaches and the players at Worlds are like believe these are like the best picks in the perfect situation. Like they're giving into their players in terms of what they want and what they want to accomplish on the world stage. Yeah,
I think once you hit Worlds, so you really do have to put faith in your players. I think that it's there's like 2 sides to it. You can either be like, no, we like gonna play for the comp, we're gonna play really respectfully. I think that's actually what TSM does really well. Like I don't see ego picks out of TSM. I think they're very much playing to like they come in with like a style that they want to play. You know, like they pick the Kayn to the Rumble because they know it's gonna have pressure in lane. They pick the Syndra because it's a power pick. They pick Lee Sin because they know like Svenskeren good in it, and it fits what they want to do. You know, like I'm pretty sure if they wanted to go ego picks, I'm pretty sure once they see like Ezreal, Alistar, like Lucian's like Doublelift's on Lucian straight away. You know, if they really want to go,
He's going on
go
Vayne,
picks.
bro.
Or Vayne or something. You know, like that. You know, it's like I definitely think that TSM plays, or at least is drafting in a way that I think is like pretty respectful. But let's move on to RNG Splice because we talked about this quite a lot. So I don't think we want to spend too much time on this because this was a pretty one-sided stomp. So who wants to open this up? In fact, Loco, what's your take on this game? Did you watch this?
Yeah. I thought Slice would be more competitive. And you know, like the stuff we talked about earlier, how teams got away with certain shit and then they just like Slice is really, really good at team fighting and playing as a team later on, but sometimes they tend to have problems early game, especially if Trashy and Wonder can't like just like going. So, and I feel like they got away with that in EU a lot of the times. Like they didn't have like the best early game in the world. They had a lot of problems and holes in their games, but it didn't really matter because teams in EU had even bigger problems and bigger holes in their game. So they come to Worlds, like these teams don't have that kind of problems. Like these teams, like if you're fucking weak in laning and you pick a abusable matchup, then or if you pick a skill matchup, they're gonna fucking smash you. And I feel like that's what RNG did. Like they're like, okay, if you can't match us bot lane, then we're just gonna fucking smash you. We have Uzi and Mata, like top tier bottom laners, and that's just what happened.
Yeah, I think there's not much to say about this game. I think it's just mechanical outplays in lane, and they just built a lead off of it, and then really aggressive play from MLXG on Lee Sin, and obviously, I mean, you can't talk about this game without mentioning Uzi and Mata. They just completely smashed bot lane. It wasn't even funny. It was like I think it was like 40 CS, like. I don't know. People are talking at the end of the game. People are talking about the Uzi horizon, which is when you have double the gold. When you finish the game with double the gold as your enemy AD. He had double the gold. Awesome. Not Mickey. Kabe was actually the lowest damage on his team, and in the game, I believe. Yes, he was lower damage than Nami.
Yeah, that's pretty brutal.
So. I don't know, like there's not much to say about this game. It's just a stomp for me.
I think there's not much to say about both these games.
Yeah.
I actually I want to talk about HDK INTZ. Does anyone have anything else to say on RNG Splice? Because if not, I'm going to move on to HDK INTZ. I'm actually going to open this myself. I'm going to be selfish. Fuck you guys. So can we bring up the draft or something? I don't know, whatever. Like, bring up the draft, don't bring it up, I don't care. Like, what the fuck is INTZ doing? Like, seriously, what is this draft? Like, we spoke at length. And it's not like, so when I say, like, we spoke at length, what I mean is that, like, there is a general understanding in the analytical community, of which we're a small part, that HDK has, like, one play style, which is, you know, they take a lead in the early game and they snowball it because they have no fucking idea how to win in the mid game. Like, that is what we have seen. There has been evidence in domestic play, and we saw at Worlds. Like, they just do not understand how to close a game unless they have a massive lead. Like, that's the only way they need to close. So why the fuck are you giving them 3 winning lanes? Like, there's a good chance that HDK is going to take an advantage in the early game anyway, but why do you give it to them for free? Like, do you honestly have so much, like, I think, like, maybe the EDG win maybe got to their heads a little bit or something, I'm not sure. Like, I don't want to speculate too much, but I think, like, definitely INTZ really just gave HDK everything they wanted. Like, I mean, you look at the comp. Can we bring up the comp? Like,
yeah, it's on screen right now.
Okay, yeah. So I think it's frozen for me. Maybe I'll switch to the stream and maybe I can see it. But like, I mean, Jesus Christ, guys! Like, you've got the fucking here it is. Okay, so you've got like the Caitlyn Karma in bottom lane, and they pick like Ezreal, knowing that Caitlyn is available, and they know that like Forgiven is a big Caitlyn player. You know,
other than banning Kate, how would you have a winning bot lane into Caitlyn Karma?
I mean, I don't know how you would draft differently, but all I know is that like they gave them 3 winning lanes. But
the thing is, versus SGK, like what?
I don't know their champion pool, you know. I don't know what they can comp pick. So, but
like
all I know is you just don't do this versus HDK. This is the only way HDK can take games. I thought INTZ could take this game. I think they had it in them to take it, but they just gave the HDK like the freest draft I've ever seen.
So I want to defend INTZ here. Okay, so we
Sure.
agree that Syndra and Nidalee need to be banned.
Yes,
Yes.
100%.
So all that's left is the third ban. If they ban the Karma instead of the Lucian, SK would still be able to get like Caitlyn Braum or Caitlyn Mage
Nami.
support.
They could even
and
take
be able,
Nami for they could even
Yeah.
Nami first pick.
and be able to have a winning lane. If they ban Caitlyn instead of Lucian, same thing. He would have like Lucian Karma, which is also strong dual lane.
Bot lane was fucked to start with.
Yeah,
just due to the
yeah.
skill
I think
difference.
it was like written
Yeah.
in stone that this lane is over at 0 minutes.
If I can talk about this team a bit, because I know them very well, I worked with them. Even
Sure,
though
yeah.
It was a different roster. So for those not aware, I worked with INTZ in 2015, the second split, the split they lost to Pain in the final. My roster was a bit different. I didn't have Revolt in the jungle. I had Jockster, who was their support jungling, and another support called Alox, because Jockster was originally a jungler, actually. Anyways, I know these players very well, and one of the things they were never known for, especially even Mikau and Jockster, like even though in other splits and in 2015 in their first split when they played together bot lane, they were stronger in lane. It's been for quite a while. If you've watched the second split of CB LOL, if you've watched IWCQ, they have not been good in bot lane. Like they consistently draft these winning losing bot lanes where they just fall behind. I mean, you saw it against, I think it was against Chiefs from Australia, where they have like, Ezreal. Yeah, they were playing against Bard Ezreal, which is double ranged, and they were playing Taric Ashe, right? So double range, they just get poked out, and they get poked out to the point where Taric is super low, and then they just all in the enemy ball in, and they get killed, and it's like these two have been so bad for the last few months, and especially suspect in laning phase. When it comes to team fighting, I think Mikau is actually much better than in laning. Joxer hasn't convinced me in either laning or team fighting, but Mikau is a pretty good team fight AD carry, you know? And he actually plays super well with reset AD carries, such as Tristana and Jinx. And I think that, for example, if you pick a Tristana here, I think lane can be a bit easier. But either way, Caitlyn was open. They need to know, they need to assess and to realize that H2K plays for lane dominance. So I don't know why they. Oh, and then the other thing that's worth mentioning is that Talkers does not deal very well with early aggression. He gets flustered and he starts making mistakes. At least that's my experience with him. And Rio just punished the shit out of him early on. And what happened in this game for me is Revolta is basically has like it's so unlucky for Revolta that his bot lane is already a losing matchup, and his mid lane is sort of misplaying to the point where Revolta needs to babysit lanes and be around mid a lot to make sure that Talkers can shove the Waven back. Like more than once he had to do this. And it just takes pressure from him. Like there's nothing he can do.
I have a follow-up question. Actually, do you think this is a match that INTZ can win ever? Like, because if it sounds to me, like this is a real bad stylistic matchup. Because of what I understand about INTZ, based on very little information, is that they kind of carry through top. And what I see from H2K is that Ottawamne is, I mean, he for me is definitely the best player on this team at Worlds. So I think like they've got this H2K's got this really good bottom lane that's always going to push them in, and that's what INTZ's weakness is anyway. So H2K has a win condition in bot, but INTZ's win condition is in top, and I don't see how they can exploit Ottawamne.
So traditionally, actually,
like how could they win this game?
INTZ is actually known before IWCQ, and traditionally from other splits, INTZ actually bases their play. They talked about it in an interview, and it's true, where they look a lot at EDG as a team where they base their playstyle on. And they're actually...
INTZ base their playstyle on the most bottom lane dominant team in China? Outside RNG.
Because they traditionally play towards bot side, not top side. They started playing towards top side. They started playing towards top side from the moment they realized that Yang was a much better top laner than his competition. And they started playing. They started giving him good matchups. Like his Gnar in the first day of IWCQ was like ridiculous, and they got him ahead, and he just did everything. And then in IWCQ, they started doing this thing where they would sacrifice his Yang's matchup, like give him lanes that get pushed in. Like they gave him like, I remember he had to play like Shen against Trundle, and he would still be ahead in CS or equal in CS. They gave him Echo into Gnar, which is a matchup you can hold if you play it well, but it's favorable for Gnar. So they started giving these bad matchups to Yang because he's a better top laner than his competition at Wildcard. And traditionally, you go back to their other games, and how they play is they coordinate bot dives with Yang. Like Yang and Spring played a lot of Echo when Tank Echo was really, really stupid, and basically they just played like set up TPs. TP, Revolta shows up. If they have double TP, Talkers will be there as well, and they five-man bot lane dive, and they get Mikau ahead. And when Mikau gets to team fights, he's a really good team fight AD carry, at least for his region, and he shows up. So yeah, so if you look at Mikau's team fights, KDA and like.
So you're saying they just have to not get absolutely smashed in bottom lane, and they have a chance in late game.
So this is the other thing.
Is that the TLDR?
Yeah, I talked to you about this last time, where I actually mentioned that strangely, INTZ is a wildcard team, but they're one of those teams that actually got punished from the removal of lane swaps because they would lane swap a lot to hide this weakness from bot lane. So
okay. Yeah, that's fair. Right, let's move on. I think we've spoken at great length about INTZ, so let's move on to the last game. So AHQ EDG. So Nasser, I'm going to give this to you because I know you have a lot to say about this game.
Yeah, I think we had a really interesting draft here from both sides. If we can pull it up, so what EDG wanted to do is craft a dive composition with the Hecarim and the Poppy. And remember yesterday, I think we were talking about how are EDG going to play in this meta? Because Mouse doesn't really play carry tops that well outside of GP, and we said that GP is kind of like a scaling top. You don't really need to snowball him. And their answer was the Poppy pick, which is I think it's going to see more and more play as we move on in the tournament and continue this tournament. So I like the Poppy pick. And yeah, so to go back to the draft, they crafted the dive composition, and in reply, HQ basically drafted Zillion and Soraka, two picks that can really mess up a dive composition. Basically, if Zillion and Soraka are under tower, you really don't want to test that and dive it, or else it can go really bad.
Yeah.
Does anyone else have anything to say about the draft?
But EDG HQ?
Yeah.
I thought
before we move on to the gameplay.
To be completely honest, I didn't get to watch this game, but I thought Clearlove Hecarim was fucking garbage. I thought he played everything really well except for Heka.
Yeah, so they call this, there's a meme in China where Clearlove called his own Hecarim pick Dead Horse, is the translation to English.
That's why are they picking the dead horse?
Like what they said in the post-match was that they think situationally, Hecarim is a good ganking jungler. Situationally. So if he gets like good setups from lanes, he can really gank.
He showed that. Yeah. He dumpstered he dumpstered the lanes. He played really well.
Yeah.
Like he was fucking smashing it.
The thing about China is that relative to other regions, when they pick Hecarim, they often look for a level 3 ghost gank.
If you're gonna do that, why not pick something else like Elise? Like they have Poppy Top and Lucian, so you have enough AD damage. I feel like something like Elise would have fit in really well with this comp. There's Nami to chain CC off of. There's Poppy to chain CC off of.
I guess what they wanted the Karma mid and they had a Poppy Top, so they wanted a bit of damage, like a carry jungler. That's my only thought, and maybe it's good into the Olaf. I can't remember how that matchup goes in the standard lane.
Maybe
that's what I can think of.
But if you're talking about level 3 ganks, and then you do it with Hecarim, and then you want damage, I feel like at least makes a lot more sense here, especially if your player also is bad at Heka but good at Elise.
Yeah,
so I was talking to Moon, TLA's jungler, and he told me that he thinks that Hecarim's level 3 gank with Ghost and Red buff is like one of the strongest in the game.
Really?
So yeah,
it
that's
cannot
what
be
he told.
It cannot be stronger than level 3 Elise. Level 3 Elise has one of the fastest clears to level 3,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
her gank pathing is, or like her actual gank itself is, it's a 6-skill gank at level 3 with double buff.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Especially versus
she can gank
Zillion.
at 250. Like
She-
she can literally gank at 2 minutes 50.
She doesn't even need double buffs. She just needs red. Like she could just clear one side of the jungle and just gank at 246. She's
Yeah.
getting out of the jungle.
Yeah,
and
but
regarding
then
Hecarim
usually
being good at level 3 gank and all that stuff, I still don't believe Hecarim was the best pick, even without watching the
Sure.
game.
I
Yeah.
just wanted to mention that someone mentioned this. Someone from LMS on Twitter mentioned this. I think it was Fuzilero. That, and he's actually right, that EDG likes to put their eggs in the Deft basket, right? They want Deft to carry, they play around Deft, and this is another comp that shows it. And what AHQ did, and I think it was kind of smart, is, okay, Deft, you're not going to kill us because we have Soraka, we have Zillion, and yeah, I think it's actually pretty smart. And we saw in certain points of the game that they managed to get to Deft by just like having a rampaging Olaf run at you while Rumble equalizes on top, you know. So I think it was a pretty smart adaptation from AHQ. They know they're the weaker team, and I think they drafted pretty smart for the occasion.
Yeah. Also, for people that don't know, the reason that HQ plays Chowie, or played Chowie for this game, is that so he didn't play in the summer because he had problems with like family problems, and Wrestler was playing really well. But back in spring, they were alternating between the mids, and what they would do is they would play Westor on blue side and Chowie on red side. And the reasoning for that is because Chowie has a really large champion pool, and they're able to get like really good counter picks. Last rotation counter pick for mid. So that's the big reason why we saw Chowie play in this game rather than Westor.
Yeah, Chowie's the first player in the world to attend the League of Legends World Championships and Dota's TI, by the way.
Really?
Yeah.
I think Chowie played. Can we actually talk about Chowie's performance? I think it was so much better.
Yeah.
I think AHQ should really stick with Chowie for like the rest of the tournament. I don't think.
Well, they're
Westor's
not.
style-
Westor is playing tonight.
Oh, is he?
I played
don't-
Westor and solo queue. He wasn't that good.
Yeah, I think Westor's.
I'm not even
individual-
joking. It was recent.
Yeah, I think Westor's
Jesus.
individual performance has been suspect for a while. I think he looked much better in the regionals than he did in his domestic playoffs, but he still wasn't like a superstar player. But for me, like I saw Chowie play really well. I really liked his Zillion. I think it was pretty clean. The way he clears waves, the way he team fights was really good. I think the way they play around him was really good, and I think it really frees up Ziv and Mountain. I think Mountain looked much better, and I think maybe some of the reasons why Mountain didn't look so good was because he never had pressure in mid, and we've seen like how difficult it is for a jungler to really do anything if you have no mid pressure. So I think maybe HQ should. I mean, I don't know, mate. It's up to them. They know their team better than I do, obviously, but I think definitely Cherry looked much better.
So shall I roll the clips?
Yeah, let's go. So let's see what happens.
So first off is the delayed lane swap, which was, I think, one of the smartest strategical moves we saw at Worlds this far.
I have a theory about this. I think EDG misplayed this pretty bad, but let's we can
let's
talk
roll the
about
clip.
it. Yeah.
I actually want to see what Locodoco thinks as well.
Okay.
So basically, at 5 minutes, they decide to back.
Is the clip playing?
Yeah, it's playing. I don't know if it's frozen there.
Oh,
If it's frozen,
Okay, I'll watch from the stream. That's
Yeah,
fine.
it's a bit delayed on the stream, but should be fine.
yeah. So viewers, look at the minimap, and you see the bottom lane is frozen. Depth and Mako froze it, and HQ noticed this, and so the lane is already over, so they decided to just lane swap.
Yeah, and what they do is like, I think the correct call here. I don't think EDG notices on time, but you noticed that Mouse just TP top, right? I think if they had noticed this earlier, they could have had just Mouse TP bot and just do the typical race for the first tower. So it's past 5 minutes, so the turret does the turrets have the same
MR.
MR. Yeah, exactly.
Huh. What do you guys think would have happened if they sent Nami to defend top? Because you're EDG, you're pushing against a frozen wave, and you're gonna have to move. So there's no way you can get first turret gold. So you're just gonna lose the straight up turret trade. But if you send Nami top, and it also looks like Karma has a lot of priority mid, you can, and you also have Hecarim and Poppy already top side, and I don't think AHQ's comp could really dive them that well. So keep Lucian bottom, keep Karma pushing mid, and get her ready to rotate top and try to defend top side instead of doing what they did
You could potentially do that. That's like an adaptation that you do, and it would actually be good because it goes along with EDG's style, where they want to get Deft ahead. So if Deft is just like farming in a 1v0 lane, and you're defending a 4v3, and like what you just mentioned about AHQ's comp, AHQ cannot really dive 4v3 against EDG's comp, I don't think. Like, Mouse is super tanky. Nami's pretty good there for the heals. Yeah, I actually can see that working. But
so can we just
yeah.
Sorry, can we just look at go back to the original, the beginning of the clip and just watch what Mako does? Like, he sits in like the rubber brush and then he starts recalling and then he cancels his recall and then he goes back into lane with Deft and then he recalls again. I think EDG got super confused by this. I don't think they understand how to deal with this lane swap because I don't think I haven't watched too much domestic LPL, and I'd like actually if any LPL experts are watching, do we see much like level 5 lane swaps?
I don't think that happened at all. I don't think
in LPL. So I think maybe EDG doesn't know how to deal with this, and I think maybe this is something that that maybe teams could look to exploit with EDG. I don't think that they understand much about the early lane swap shenanigans that you can do. Because I think at least the way Mako responded speaks to me with like maybe there's just not that level of understanding there for them.
I think if you're not used to this sort of like this new novel lane swap basically, or like a new like a novel thing that happens in the game, and you haven't been introduced to it before in a scrim or in a competitive game, you're just not prepared mentally to know how to react to it. Maybe you have some like really cerebral players that know how to react to every like different new novel situation, but it's really rare. And when it happens here, they just didn't know how to react to it, and they're like, "Oh, should I go top? No, okay, let's push. No, let me go back. Let me recall and go top."
I mean, sure, but this is what
analytics happens again. I think now that they've seen it, they'll know how to respond to it. Maybe
this is literally what analytical stuff is for. Like, this is what I did on Fnatic, and this is what I did towards my latter time at CSM. Was like look for these like interesting like adaptations to meta games, you know. And I think that like this, I know EDG have like loads of money. Like, what's their analytical stuff doing? You know, like you see these like lane these level 5 lane swaps. Like, you've got to have someone watching NA. Like, we knew that NA was a strong region, and maybe there's just this like disrespect, but this is a common tactic in NA, and I don't see why.
If you're
why you wouldn't see this coming. I don't see why you wouldn't see this coming.
If you're sweeping your reason, then you probably don't give a fuck about NA.
Yeah.
Probably not, but like, I mean, come on, like, if you really want to take this seriously, you want to win worlds, because they talk about how they want to win worlds because they had a disappointing worlds performance last year, and it's like you gotta put in the work, man.
Can I just add something here? Like, sure. I just wanted to play devil's advocate real quick. How does the EDG notice this? Like, right now, if you look at stream, the video is paused. How does EDG call this? Because I think their back times were a bit unlucky, actually, because you see right now, Mako's
you don't call it. It's not. It's not about how they called it. It's about how they adapted to it once they saw it.
Okay,
I think their adaptation was really poor.
Okay, but once they saw it, Loco talked about Nami going top, but I think it's just unlucky that once they spot, I'm gonna forward a bit. Once they spot Ashe top lane, so they spot Ashe top lane. Yeah, at 5:20 something. Yeah, so at this point, when they spot Ashe, Mouse had just finished TP, and Mako had just arrived to bot lane turret. So I think that it was just like they were so unlucky in timings where, one, Mako was already in bot lane, so roaming top would take him quite a long time, and two, Mouse had just finished channeling TP to top lane, so they can't have him TP to bot lane so they can race. So it was poor adaptation, but I think they were extremely unlucky with the window of time. Because if Ashe shows 10 seconds earlier, they can then decide, okay, do we defend this and Nami starts moving top and we still finish the channel on Mouse? Or 2, we still have the TP channel, Nami is bot lane, let's race them. I think...
So the only good adaptation, I think that if at least they're cognizant that something like this could happen, where you just smashed bot lane and are going to win that lane, and top lane is being pushed in by the enemy top laner. What you could do is the Nami would just walk through mid lane and see, basically, like, try to just think about whether the bot lane is going to show up bottom or top. And if they don't show up bottom, then you can just walk towards top. And if they do show bottom, then you just walk towards bottom. And then you'll just lose a few seconds if they do end up bottom, but it shouldn't be that big since you already won lane.
I want to touch on that point, because that's so important. Like, just Nami walking mid is super standard. Like, after
I think she should have done that.
After you get out of base, you always walk directly to mid, and then you either decide to help with vision around mid, or you walk back to bottom while getting vision with your jungler. Like, it's very, very rare you walk straight to bottom, and it must have been a habit that EDG like developed after playing towards depth so much. But yeah, it's way better for Nami to go mid than walk straight to bottom.
Okay, so we figured that one out.
That should be the standard play.
So should we move on to?
We have some more clips, right?
Yeah, we have the top lane dive, and then Baron. Wait, I have the wrong time here. Okay, 21:57.
Yeah, let's do
XD Shaka.
So if you guys remember in episode 1, for those of you who watched it, we talked about how LPL love to take Baron whenever they see the opportunity. Either if they just blew the enemy top laner TP, or if they killed someone, or if they forced a couple of players to back. Whenever they see that frame of opportunity, they're going to go for the Baron, either to take it or to bait it out. And we see this here after, EDG get 1 or 2 kills top, they go straight to do an early, like, 22.5-minute Baron.
Yeah, they kill the
super good play. Yeah, they take a kill or 2, they get the tower, and then they get the Baron. And this is, like, super cool to watch teams have this level of decisiveness. It's one thing that I think NA teams and EU teams can learn from.
Yeah, I think it's a bit what I talked about earlier, where to set up a Baron correctly, I think you definitely need to get a pick off first. Like, if you really want to, like, bait and actually consider taking it. And they kill Mountain in this case. They almost kill Anne, and then Mountain ends up being the one that dies. So it's a pretty free Baron. You'll notice that, like, AHQ actually tried to contest the Baron pretty hard, but EDG has Karma Nami. So what they have is this Karma just REs. So Karma didn't
sustain. So much sustain.
Sustains the whole equalizer damage. So equalizer from Ziv there is really good. It's on top of 3 people, but it ends up not mattering. So I think it's such a crisp play from EDG, and this is I think this is a clear showing of why they're a world-class team.
Yeah. So from this point forward, so earlier when I was talking about draft, you can show, like, the next clip when they do a bottom dive. So as we talked about, ADG has a dive comp, but AHQ has, like, a kind of anti-dive comp with the Zillion, the Ashe, and the Soraka. So how do you dive this team? So what I think, and what EDG does repeatedly in this game, is they do a 1-3-1, and they make sure all 3 lanes are pushing up. And when you do that, you split apart the AHQ team so that they're not bundled up as a 4-1 and have, like, the 4 members under 1 tower. And once you do that, you're able to pick off either the 3 in the side lane, the 2 or 3 in the side lane, the 2 or 3 in the mid lane, and then the 1 or 2 people in the side lane.
So
and they did this here.
You're talking about when they set up the 1-3-1, right?
Yeah, they set up the 1-3-1. Karma goes top, and she pushes in top, and then the Ashe needs to answer that wave, and the Poppy needs to answer the bottom wave, and the Zillion is answering the mid wave. And so you basically split apart the 3 core members of the HQ lineup, and then you're able to basically dive whichever one you think is best. And in this case, it was the Poppy. And even though they don't get the kill, they get the tower. And if you keep watching the game, if the viewers keep watching the game in their own time, you can see that they keep doing this. And it's really smart play and shows like good like understanding of macro, something which Flash Wolves didn't show, as we talked about earlier on with the slide lane push.
Okay, so do we have? I think we have one last clip, right?
Yeah, the Elder part about Elder. So.
Huh, this game seemed more interesting than I thought it'd be.
Yeah, I think
it was a really interesting
the most interesting game.
Yeah, it was the most. At least it was the most. It wasn't just like super straightforward, you know, like where one team just gets the lead in early game and just like pushes in and then takes it out. It actually interesting thing happened. Like literally in the Flash Wars game, I went to the bathroom, came back, and nothing had changed. I was like, okay.
Yeah, like the other 5 games, I was tilting off so hard. I'm like, this day is just so terrible. And then this game happened. I'm like, holy shit! Thank God we have something good to talk about in tomorrow's show.
I thought AHQ would roll over, like from watching. How
they
play
have so what they did this game. So what they did this game to. So one thing we talked about on this show previously is how AHQ is kind of smart in the mid game about like what they need to do to kind of stay in the game. They're pretty smart as a team. There's not one thing they do that's great. They just understand like what their comp needs and what they need to do to kind of stay in the game.
That's how I feel about AHQ. They're actually coordinated and they understand like how to turn pressure into like leads. I think they're actually really good at it, and also like it helps that Ziv is a fucking monster.
Yeah. So what they did in this game, we haven't shown any clips. So what they do is they construct like 3, 4, or 5 picks on different members of EDG, which is why this game stalled until was 40 minutes or something.
Yeah.
We didn't show the clips, but if you guys rewatch the game, you'll see like the different picks they did with Ashe and the Zillion. They basically hit the Ashe arrow and then double bomb with Zillion. All right, so are we showing the Elder Dragon?
Yeah, I already showed that they did the Elder Dragon and it's already playing in the meantime with the Baron, stuff and how they finished up the game.
Yeah, so I think AHQ just kind of spaced out and didn't realize that EDG was doing Dragon.
Yeah.
Because they see the Poppy go over the ward and towards Dragon, and they know Dragon is up, but they don't have vision. And then they see Hecarim go, and like the way HQ postured, I don't think they realized, and then they realized too late that they were doing it. Because I think if they realized, they would have either walked straight to Dragon or they would have went straight to Baron, and they did neither. Instead, they realized late and then went to Baron, and then they're like, "Oh, we're late here," and they're done. We don't know what to do.
Yeah, they go to Baron super late. They go to Baron and take out a pink ward and back off. It was so bad.
No, not just that. And then they fight.
Yeah. Against Elder.
The Elder buffed EDG with a fed Hecarim and a fed Lucian, and I'm like, what?
I think they panicked. I think they got caught out, and I think they were like, "Oh shit, they're taking out a dragon! Quick, go Baron!" And they're like, "Oh shit, they've done the dragon! What do we do? Back off! Oh, we got caught. Oh, we dead, and the game is over." I honestly, I think that's what happened.
This was a sad ending to the game.
Yeah,
to a good match.
For the game, it was. Yeah, it was.
Okay, so do you have anything else left to say about this game? Like, you want to say anything about this game?
The game ends after this, but yeah.
Yeah,
I didn't get to watch. The only thing I'll say is I'll go watch this game.
Yeah, I think you should. It's actually okay.
It's really
so does anyone else have anything to say before we start taking questions?
No.
Let's do some questions.
Okay, I have some questions. So a guy called Hogath. Will Flash Wolves be able to exploit C9 like SKT did? What do we think? I'll open this to Loco first, since you're the guest.
I don't think Jensen will be dumb enough to make the same mistake twice. Like, he'll be like, you know what, I got bodied. Like, it's okay, guys. We're never giving people such a first pick.
Do you honestly think that he won't? Because he played this way against Faker. Like, do you not think he's gonna try and do the same thing against Maple and just like show up, be like, I'm better 1v1, so I'm gonna smash you into the ground? Because that's his attitude, right?
I cannot imagine in the reviews like the blame going to anyone else other than Jensen and maybe Meteos. Like, there's no way they do this review and they're like, yeah, our fucking top and bottom suck balls. That's why we lost. Like, Jensen and Meteos, you guys just keep on doing what you're doing. They're definitely going to be like, oh, we made a mistake here. We shouldn't play this way. We shouldn't draft this way. This way of drafting doesn't work, and we should try to play blah, blah, blah. There's no scenario like where C9's like, you know what, guys? Faker was just too good. We can get again, and then this time we'll actually make it happen. There's no way it happens like that. So yes, I think they'll fix their problems.
What about the stylistic matchup? Because we've seen Flash Wolves take a good advantages by invading jungles, and this is something we haven't seen C9 do very much. So do we think that they're going to shut down Meteos?
I think
Meteos will be hella fucking vocal. These fucking idiots are in my jungle. Why the fuck isn't anyone helping? I don't.
Yeah.
The usual problem is when Meteos needs to help top side or bot side, and then he has camp spawning on the other side, so he just ignores the lane that needs help.
Yeah,
but I don't think he won't be the type where they're invading onto him, and then he's like, oops, I guess I'll just have to keep my jungle up. It's not gonna happen like that. He's gonna be fucking vocal, and people are gonna come and help him.
Yeah, Meteos likes his farm, man.
I think the problem with Meteos is that he still hasn't figured out how to optimize his pathing to where he ends up to where he needs to be on the map. I think that's what Meteos is missing, and that's what a lot of Western junglers are missing, except for and by Western I mean like non-Korean, non-import junglers, except for Svenskeren. I think Svenskeren is the only one that's really intuitive to like a Korean level, about a Korean style of jungling, where he knows where to be, he knows where he needs to be at the end of his pathing.
I can tell you it's less Svenskeren than maybe you think. I mean, it's very wrong. Svenskeren is fucking beast, and he is really, really smart.
You think it's because it's mostly Bjergsen?
No, it's a coordination thing. The whole team just works really well together. You know, I know how that particular roster works, and it's a coordination thing. It's not just Svenskeren. They all, like, every play, everyone is always talking about like what is their role in that play, and I think that's such a part of the reason why they're such a smart team is the way they communicate. And you know, it's not just Svenskeren going off. Like, Svenskeren is like playing the way he should play, but it's a team thing. Like, it's not just Svenskeren being amazing. It's the way they coordinate as a team is really impressive. So, anyone else want to touch on Flash Wolves and C9?
No, I think
the last thing I'll say is that I think it's going to end up being about draft and how the 2v2 is going to end up. Basically, who has the better 2v2 pressure from draft and kind of like play. Sure.
Okay, here's another question. Actually, I think is pretty interesting. Risen Lazarus, shout out to Risen Lazarus. Are teams going to find an answer to Syndra in this tournament besides banning it or Vladimir? And what are the chances we'll see solo queue counters like Banshee's Veigar? So I don't know anything about Banshee's Veigar. So anyone who knows about this, come in.
Yeah, so this is a thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think this is a thing that came from high elo European solo queue. I started seeing a lot of talk about it on Twitter, where what you do on Veigar is basically the last update on Veigar just overtuned him super hard to the point where like he gets AP for everything. He harasses you, he gets AP. He hits you with any spell or or kills minions with any spell, he's getting AP. So he stacks AP really fast, right? So what people have been doing, like even like Portstar Zillion, I've seen him post on Twitter a lot about this, is like he goes like Lost Chapter, and he doesn't finish Morello, or he finishes Morello, but he goes like Lost Chapter into Banshee's Veil. So really early defensive build, because you just don't.
God, that sounds like tank Yasuo level.
This was what I used to do with Veigar last year when Veigar was Flavor of the Month.
Yeah.
Because of the buffs. Into really hard matchups like versus a Kassadin, what I used to do is go straight into Banner of Command.
Oh, okay.
Because you're just stacking AP so easily.
Yeah.
And when you go Banner of Command, you're so tanky. The Kassadin can't burst you, and then you have the buffed up minion that Kassadin's gonna have a hard time clearing out. And it was pretty fun to play.
He's never gonna.
Loco, what's your take on Syndra, Loco?
For the Banshee stuff, like that sounds pretty dumb in my opinion. It feels like you're gonna get pushed in, and the first item you rush is Banshee. Like, holy fuck! Even if you can last the lane,
because he goes Lost Chapter first, so he gets the AP to last it.
AP and mana.
Yeah.
So you're able to clear lane. You're able to clear lane.
Like you let yourself be pushed into lane, and then you WQ minions.
And you get AP from your passive.
Yeah, but I don't know if it's effective enough.
Is it going to be like Varus, where you just concede lane pressure, but you never concede the turret?
My problem is I think that you're gonna get pushed in, and it's really hard to position with Veigar. And I think that's the reason, even when he was strong last year in solo queue, we didn't see him that much at Worlds. It was only played like a few times, and I think it's just because even outside of laning phase, like I think you can get basically like flanked really easily and killed.
Mm-hmm.
I'm for Syndra. I think something like picking. I'm not sure if how viable it is, but I would, if I had to come up with a solution, I would definitely take Braum or Kench to mitigate her mid game much as possible and her pick potential.
Mm-hmm.
And I would pick something that can outrange her and harass her well in lane. I don't know, maybe I'm not sure how good Vel'Koz is right now, but something
We've
like a
seen some
Vel'Koz.
Varus.
Crumbs mentioned Ziggs.
Oh yeah, there's
Oh.
Ziggs as well.
The idea behind Ziggs is correct. Like Zig or Vel'Koz,
Yeah.
something long range that can outscale her and outpoke her while you get safety by having a
Yeah,
Kench or
yeah.
Braum on your team. That's how I would do it. But it seems a lot simpler to not give out Syndra.
Yeah. What
For
CLG did was pick the Vlad, and he can just build MR, and basically with the pool and his kind of like mobility, he can dodge her skill shots and be effective in team fights and just get into that backline threat and be that like backline threat
Yeah, I think that's
So-
the best solution for sure.
right now. Best solution is to ban.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna have one more question, and then I think we'll wrap it up. So here's the question is more of an open-ended question, but it's like, why haven't we seen much GP, and what other kind of picks were you surprised that we've not seen so far?
We haven't seen.
So I guess we'll
GP.
start with the GP, and then we can open it out to like what other picks are you surprised we haven't seen and why?
Okay, so
You,
GP
you can't
got-
pick. You can't. You
Yeah.
can't pick GP.
He just got nerfed way too many times now. Like and not
You're
only
way
that,
too squishy in lane.
Yeah, like you just like I can't remember who talked about this, but GP had these lanes where he lost, and some lanes that he could hold, right? So he like really lost to Gnar, and then he had lanes like Shen that he could like they both farm up for late game that he can hold, right? But Shen is out, and the champions we're seeing top, we're seeing more Kennen, we're seeing more Rumble, and can GP really afford to play those lanes? Because now it's not like the Gnar lane was the worst one, and then Echo was pretty bad, and then Shen was doable, and like some lanes were doable. But now the doable lanes are out. He's gotten nerfed, and the picks that are showing up even fucking harder. So I don't think we get to
Let's
see GP.
remember the nerfs. They took away 40 of his base health, and then they also nerfed the damage on his ultimate early on. So he doesn't have that really the get out of jail free card where he can just wave clear if he's getting pushed in and about to be dove
Yeah.
that easily.
Sure.
And like you said, the carry tops that are right now just like fuck him over so easily.
Okay, let's open the question out to a bit more of what picks did you expect to see, and are you surprised they didn't show up?
Not Tristana yet. I think that's one I can think of, because you look at Sven, you look at Forgiven, they all had quite some games during playoffs and regionals, so that's one for me. Well, playoffs in those two cases, but yeah. Also, Okabe also picked it, so I think it's an EU thing, but I'm surprised we haven't seen it yet, and we actually saw the Jinx instead.
Sure.
Bot lane priority seems to matter a lot, and people are picking a lot of melee supports like Braum and Alistar.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I see a comp like Braum, Alistar, or like Alistar, Kennen, Lee, I don't think Janna is a bad pick at all. Like if people are picking more and more Alistar and more Lees and more Kennens, I think Janna into a melee support that also counters the rest of their comp scales really well and gives you priority in lane. So I think that's something interesting, like an avenue that teams can look into. If they're constantly playing comps and champions that needs to come into you, how about you guys pick Janna with a hyper carry like Tristana or Jinx? You win lane, you scale better into them, and you have safety of having Janna.
Yeah, that's interesting, and we kind of goes full circle with the support meta, where it's range against and then melee and then ranged, and
Yeah.
yeah.
So
I think the only thing I can think of, maybe not surprised, but it probably just hasn't shown up yet and might do eventually, is the Evelynn and the Kindred.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's
I
fair.
could see that. I definitely would expect to see clear look by Evelyn at some point.
Yeah.
I think he is disgusting on that champion.
Yeah. He
Okay,
is.
so I think that's all we have time for today. So people have to go. So we're going to wrap it up here. I just want to extend some thanks to Locodoco for coming on the show. Thanks very much. It was good to have you. Hope you
Thanks
enjoyed
for
it.
having me on.
Excellent. And where could people find you, Loco? What's next for you?
Well, I live in LA, so you guys are. You guys can find me on Twitter. I haven't completely decided what I want to do next split, so just find me on Twitter for now. I'll definitely do YouTube content with TL though, so check out my YouTube.
Okay.
Awesome. Good stuff. Shaka, you want to give any shout outs to anyone or anything? Yourself?
I would just like to mention that if you're not seeing Worlds live and like if you're European or have a really bad time zone or work or whatever, we're releasing daily recaps on Lolking. So like
Which I am writing many.
yeah, Jarge is helping me. We're just writing recaps of the games in text and with video highlights. So if you don't have time to watch over all the games, you can just like take 10 minutes of your time or 20 and catch up. So yeah, that's all from my
Sure.
side.
NASA, anything to say?
Not much. Enjoyed having Loco on the show. Maybe we can do more episodes in the future.
Yeah.
And have him on.
Okay,
I'm
so,
down.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see. We're still new. We're still kind of feeling out how we want to do this thing. So, yes. As for me, people can follow me on @Jarge__ on Twitter. Fair warning, I spam quite a lot, and I have quite extreme opinions on Twitter. Don't take that too seriously. I kind of mostly just tweet what I think at the time and don't really put much thought into it. So a lot of times I end up saying stupid things, but there's maybe some interesting things there one every 100 tweets or something. Who knows? If you guys can follow the channel, that'd be really good. We're going to be releasing content like this. Preferably, we're going to try to do it every day for Worlds, and we'll also be doing a whole weekly wrap up at the end of each week. So guys could follow that out. We are also going to be uploading this video to YouTube. So if you guys can make sure that you follow the YouTube channel, it's War Room content. Yes, thank you. Yeah, it's War Room content on YouTube. You can find it. But again, there'll be Reddit threads, and we'll link it to. We'll link you to it on Twitter and stuff. So you can find it if you follow us. You can find the content. So that's it from us, and hope you guys enjoy Worlds. Just a quick shout out. In about 3 minutes, the Lolly Sports will be doing a Facebook thing, a live Q&A with some of the casters and people there. So if you guys want to check one more Worlds content, you guys can check that out. And that's it from us. So we'll see you guys tomorrow.
See ya.
Peace, guys.
Later.
Okay, I think
We out.